I'd love to know how many deer get killed on that place.
There's not thousands.
Doesn't matter when it's summer, killed in all.
We're always yearly. Well, you know about, and the bad thing about it is, there's no rendering company right now, because the rendering company the state used,
Oh, no.
There's no rendering.
not right now. Because some guy called in today and wanted to come out and pick up the deer. Well, this is the second or third time I called. So we called the game fish and parks officer, and he said, no, we don't have a rendering company right now.
You should see how many are on the interstate.
Who did, where was the place out of they used?
Out of Iowa.
There was,
Well, I mean, because we went on a deer hunt out in Myrtle or Draper, and they're 50 to 100 laying.
his daughters, just from Howard. His daughters were the ones that played basketball. What's their name? I can't think of their name. But he does that. And his daughters.
Really?
Yep. Like when they're home, they're the ones going out to load the dead animals.
But yeah, they said they don't have a rendering company right now. What's the name of that rendering company out? Was it from Sioux Center? Was there a rendering company from Sioux Center that people would belly up?
Oh, really? Gee, that was before. Tough market to go belly up there.
Yeah.
There were two of them. There's one from Alton and one from. Holy cow! Nice. That is a nice one.
This caught, dry caught.
I like that. Nice old deer.
Not a hill steer.
No. Doesn't look like a goat.
He's not holding up one arm.
It's a jackrabbit.
I got very lucky.
Yeah. Did you get it?
Yeah.
No. Nice.
There
There's one from, well, I see it was near Hudson, Jackson. Where that other one was from.
Okay, yeah, because the one the state's using, they said it went bankrupt. No kidding. So they don't have,
Which is funny, because that's the guy that built the Augie Stadium. That's what he did.
oh yeah.
Who's the guy? He played basketball at Howard. Hinker? No. His daughter. Elsie. His daughter's playing. Kepsel. Heath Kepsel. Heath Kepsel.
Kepsel.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks everyone for coming. Additions to or deletions from the agenda?
Mayor, we have one deletion from the agenda, ordinance 603, we're gonna take that up for first reading at the next meeting. We'll delete that from tonight's agenda.
So the new business C is scratched. Any other additions or deletions? All right, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Chad Wolf, Chad Riley. All right. Visitors to be heard. All right, crickets. Moving on. Minutes of November 12th, 2019.
Move to approve.
Second.
Billy and Jackson, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Claims.
I just had one comment. I'd asked before the meeting, there was on the cell phones for everybody else's, there's different levels of, if you're a, did you say a department head?
Yeah, if you have a
75.
supervisory responsibility, it's 75,
That
regular
is
staff is 50, that was approved in the personnel manual.
And maybe it was just me, I didn't remember that, I was trying to clarify for myself.
All right, need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Rock,
Second.
Chad Riley, discussion. Hearing none. We'll go Billy,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Chad Riley, Rock,
Aye.
Chad Wood.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0, claims approved. Reports. Countryside Edition TIF District Update.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just a quick verbal report to everybody, make them aware of where we are at with the TIF district request. I think Mayor and two council members attended the Lincoln County Planning and Zoning meeting last week. The Planning and Zoning Commission tabled a decision to recommend or not recommend moving forward with the TIF district creation, which we were certainly disappointed in, though it gives us a chance to find an opportunity to answer whatever remaining questions there may be about that TIF district and its creation. So I've reached out to all Planning and Zoning Commission members as of today and offered to meet with each of them or provide any other information we can. You'll also have in front of you on your desks a quick frequently asked questions document that we're providing, along with a number of other data points and data sets, including the housing study we present tonight for approval and the TIF district feasibility study. So we're pressing ahead on this. Certainly willing to meet with anyone and everyone that needs to learn more about this, and we'll go on from there.
Do we know the date of the next meeting?
Be I think it's the third Monday. Let me confirm that quickly.
Did they give a reason why they?
There are a number of questions, and a lot of them, I don't mean to step in and make a determination for them. But it felt to me that a lot of the questions were policy-related questions that are really the purview of the county commission and not necessarily planning and zoning. A planning and zoning commission, their role is to look at the zoning ordinances, look at the comprehensive plan, and decide does this plan as presented comply with those. We certainly feel that it does. The county commission will have to bring up a resolution, obviously, and that's the document that was presented. But a planning and zoning commission can't pass a resolution. They can't make that policy for the county commission. So I think there's some back and forth to have there. There's certainly room for discussion and clarification of what we feel the strengths are of that application. I think it feels like there's some misinformation out there about how these TIF districts work based on some of the feedback I've gotten, and how they directly or indirectly benefit one party or another. So
They,
I kind of just quickly scanned through. It's on the county's webpage, the TIF. Looks like everything should be what they need to answer right there. So
their planning and zoning director actually made the recommendation to the commission to, if I understood it right, to move forward with it, to move it on to commission.
told me did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Do we know how much revenue the farmland as it sits out there generates every year?
we could find that out relatively easily. It's valued at approximately 250.
Because I've talked,
And it'll sit that way for years to come if it's not
Yeah.
TIF'd.
and I called a couple people on there that I know, and that was kind of their thing. They feel like the county's losing money, but I tried to explain our point on it. I think they understood it towards the end, but I was just curious how much tax revenue they're getting currently on that.
I can see if I can pull that up tonight while we're going through. I mean, the simple reality is if properties of this size are developed through a TIF district, a city can't, take on $6.3 million when the borrowing capacity is 4. Now, I still have a disagreement with the state that the TIFs should not count against the municipality's borrowing capacity. They simply should. They have a security against that. But that is the way they determine them, and so we have to follow that until they change their mind. Either way, these properties don't get developed outside of that TIF district. They're going to stay at their valuation plus inflation for years, if not decades, to come without it.
And my understanding of the TIF is once the $6.3 million is recouped through property taxes, then it would start coming to the county and the city.
And the school district.
And the school district.
Correct.
Whoever else.
Yep.
So it's not like for 20 years he's gonna the developer gets.
Absolutely not, no. What that TIF goes to pay off is the debt that's created by him installing the infrastructure for the city. So essentially what's happening is the developer is taking out $6.3 million to build the city's infrastructure for them. We're repaying them through the TIF increment. That's all it is.
And once that number is met,
It's done.
comes to us. Yeah.
That is retired.
And that was something through the conversations that I don't think maybe planning and zoning understood, not that, from what I've gathered, they should even be looking into that. I mean,
I think it's great that they're interested. That's a great, I think that's positive. And it's also a question that we can certainly answer. You know, we're happy to answer any of those questions at any time. Yeah, again, TIF districts are not easy to comprehend. They are complicated things. But we've done a solid feasibility study. We know the data is on our side. Lincoln County Economic Development shows the same data that we're showing. Our housing study is going to confirm some of that data. So we know that we're growing at this rate, and we can't sustain it if we don't have those houses. The third Monday of the month at 6:30 is the meeting, so that would be December 16th.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Any date? Does that complete your report?
Yes, thank you.
Motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Chad Wolf, Billy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Library report.
Library Director Audra Bullard wasn't able to be here tonight. I'm going to just read her report for you. She provided a written report this morning. Story time last week wrapped up for November. They had 2 settings with 2 sessions each. 162 kids between all of them. So I think really great turnout. That includes the in-house daycare and the outreach reading. So we'll have story time again in December on the 12th and Friday the 13th. Again, always looking for people to help read, so if you haven't had an opportunity to sit down and read to a bunch of kids, it is fun. I know I had fun. I think Mr. Robs had fun on here.
Had a great time.
So, you know, spending time with those kids certainly lightens up the room. I'll close Thursday through Saturday this week for the Thanksgiving holiday. Currently getting ready for their holiday open house, which is next Monday in conjunction with Santa Night. So we'll have that coming up. We'll have cider and cookies, some door prizes. We'll offer a coloring contest for junior K through 4th grade, and 3 runners will be selected for Barnes Noble gift cards. Those will be displayed in the library that night.
Motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Second.
Chad Wolf, Brock, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Public Works report.
Jeremy Gobranson is out. Sounds like he hasn't gotten his luck yet on a deer, but hopefully soon. Will do so. So I'm going to give him his report today. He's out of the office for the week this week. So on the street side, asphalt patching is concluded for the season. Over 200 tons applied this year. Cold patching of potholes is going to continue as long as the weather allows. We may actually, you know, if we get some freeze thaw cycles, there's opportunities to use some cold patching throughout the winter, and we may hold on to some. We'll see how well that works. Street sweeping continue until the weather dictates otherwise. Looks like that's going to dictate today was the last possible day of the week of street sweep for the year. We've got some water collecting on streets from sump pumps yet, so we've been working with a few property owners on removing those hoses from the street. Most of those are going to be along First Avenue, and those are usually pretty easy to work with. We've talked to many of those homeowners last year and had good luck with that later on in the season. We've had some blading and gravel addition. I think all the gravel roadways have been done now, as well as the alleys. All our seasonal buildings are winterized. RV. We did something different this year, and in many of these, we put RV antifreeze into some of them. Even when the years that we were blowing out with our air compressor, we still had some, we have problem areas. Last year, we had 3 or 4 plumbing fixtures that had to be replaced when we turned the water back on, even after it had been blown out. So we went a little bit beyond this year and put that RV antifreeze into it on our dead end plumbing so that we don't compromise those. We still need to make some repairs on light pole bases on Main Street. Some of those are busted apart, as brought to our attention by a local resident. And so we're gonna try and figure out a way that we can fix those. They're missing a strap on the inside, so we're trying to find a way to do that without having to replace them altogether. But there's a possibility that we'll have to replace some of them after this snow season. Also been around doing some debris removal at some catch basins. There are a few on the west side, and near Central Basin 2 and 3 that collect quite a bit of leaves this time, so we've been working on a few of those. Water, sewer, and wastewater side, great news this month. We were able to achieve 97% removal of BOD on our permit and 96% of our suspended solids. As Jeremy notes, this is noteworthy as a reflection of early indicators of further sewer separation between storm and sanitary, as well as lower precipitation during the month, diluting the concentration of our influent. In the future, Jeremy's going to present a report comparing years, precip, and inflow flows, and hopefully the downward influent trend continues. We did receive a DNR warning letter on November 18th on our wet testing that was not completed for the month of September. That is true. The UPS delivery that has to send stuff to, I think, Wyoming?
Yeah, I think it is.
Somewhere in Wyoming. They didn't get it there in the time frame required by the testing. It was actually a day late, 3 days late to the lab. So the contents were empty for some reason. So they will consider that. They know what happened, but they always have to send out a warning letter regardless.
And they don't know what happened to them? The great mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were empty?
At least they got there this time. This has happened before where it got there late, or didn't get there at all, I should say. This time it actually got there, but it was empty. So, which is odd. I mean, it gets into these coolers, it gets sealed. There's a pretty specific process. North water tower maintenance is now complete with the exception of the light on top, which keeps going out for some reason. We've been back and forth with McGuire over this. We're not sure what's happening, but we keep putting it back on their checklist. Security cameras are installed at the wastewater plant at the roller site, and they're now operational. Jeremy Jacobson will be taking his class 3 wastewater treatment exam the week of December 5th. So wish him luck if you see him. Class 3 operators are very hard to find, and be a huge asset to Lennox to have 2 of those staff on time, or on staff at the same time.
Can I ask a question? So in the last water bill, there was a letter, which is great. It talked about road site, and it talked about a Lincoln County something or other that was a place to dump things that couldn't go out. Transfer station?
Transfer station.
Is that out here?
Worthing.
Okay.
Yep, just east of the Worthing exit, and then maybe not even a quarter mile north on the first railroad.
Is that?
It's right behind there. When I read the letter, it made it sound like there was one right out here, or we added one on. I'm like, oh, that's convenient. But I wanted clarification.
I could always ask the manager of the Lincoln County Transfer Station if he would wish to have a little closer to Lennox.
So,
We'd be happy to check in on that.
and with the streets, I mean, obviously snow is predicted here in the next couple of days. You're ready to get that.
Yeah, we met with the streets crew this morning. So Darren and Jeremy are both gone this week. We do have 3 operators on staff yet. So Mitch and Brian and JJ will all be on staff tomorrow and Wednesday. We'll probably be putting out a snow alert sometime tomorrow evening, giving folks probably between 3 and 4 hours to get cars off the street. More than likely start snow operations 2 o'clock Wednesday morning, but we're going to play that by ear, monitor it closely, and go from there. They spent most of the day today getting everything prepped, getting a little more salt, sand. Most of the plows should be on by now, and should be about ready to roll.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pose same side. Motion carries. That was Brock and Billy. All right, police department reports.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for having me here tonight. Just wanted to let you know just kind of what we had going on last month, the month of October. We had, for calls of service, it was 177 calls total. For this month, It's a little slower, we're only at 98 in the month of November, which is good. Outside of that, last time we talked, we were still working on getting our Zerker implemented, up and running, functional, trying to work out all the bugs. We now have Zerker up and running. All of our guys love it. It's sped up our process quite a bit at this point. We're still working through some of the bugs with our e-citations, which my understanding is that's going to take some time with Zerker. It's a work in progress, computer writing programs. They'll get to me when they're done. Other than that, we have our e-card readers for the driver's license, scanning them in. That saves us a lot of time on a traffic stop. We've been testing out some Motorola radios that have body cameras. Our guys are really enjoying that. The ability from a management standpoint to be able to go back and review when we get complaints, or to see, you know, kind of bring myself up to speed what happened on a call. It's a tremendous help. We've had those since near the end of September. We had a 90-day trial on it. So we're not done with it yet. We've been in contact with them, so everything's been going good. Outside of that, I've reached out recently to the school to try to breathe some new life into the bike rodeo program. Several years ago, our school did this every year, and we have not done it. Summertime's increasingly with these kids, we see them running around without helmets. Some kids can't afford bikes. I think it's a good program. I wish we would have never went away from it. My understanding was they lost funding for it. So working with the school and the city, we hope to breathe some life back into that and try to get that reenacted sometime by April or May.
What's it called?
The bike rodeo. What it in essence does is it, through the funding that we can raise for the program, we'll use that money to buy helmets and some bikes. And then near the end of the school year, they'll allow all the kids to write essays. Who wants to participate to try to raffle off these bikes? And they'll deem, the school actually is the one who actually will read through everything and deem who deserves the bike and whatnot. The helmets, they're a little bit more, they hand them out to another raffle program that they do, so.
Have you approached Target? I think Canton gets theirs from Target, and Target gives them, I think they give them 5 or 10 helmets.
Okay, no, I have not approached Target. We actually just discussed this last Friday, so I'm trying to gear up a foundation on how I'm gonna approach it, but thank you for that. Any questions?
Thank you, Will. Motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Chad Riley, Chad Wolf. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign?
Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Alan?
Good evening, council. Forgive me, I don't have much of a voice right now, so. I don't have a whole lot for you guys to talk about tonight. You have all my papers in the file already, so pretty much business as usual. We just came back from an EMT conference in Aberdeen last month. Had 7 of us between the medics and the EMTs that went. We spent 3 days up there doing some education. And the other thing we've got on the board is we're hoping, nothing set in stone, but we've got the groundwork laid to maybe offer an EMT class in Lennox next spring. So we're hoping that we can get that up and running. There's some interest I've heard from in-town, but also from surrounding communities as well, so.
What about an e-bike driver course?
We are talking about putting one of those together as well.
Now, can, say if I wanted to drive the ambulance, I'd be able to do that if I took that course or not?
It's more than just EVOC driving anymore. There's an EVOC driving portion, and then there's also, let's see, it's patient movement, HIPAA, and there's several other different classes that you have to also go through to compete with the new law that was created a couple years ago.
Is that different than the EMR, or that together?
That is different altogether.
Okay.
EMR is Emergency First Responder Program,
Yeah.
and it would be a step below the EMT.
Gotcha, right, and that's how many hours?
EMR, off the top of my head, I don't know of an EMR class that's been offered in the last 5 or 6 years.
Because the reason why, because I was in the meeting when the legislature decided to do it,
is because all the other states have it. And there's liability, there were questions from the Health and Human Services Committee, which is where it was at. And the reason why they want to do that is because they think it will leapfrog somebody to go, almost like a stepping stone to go get their EMT.
The one problem with it, and it's what some people see, is they go take the EMR program, let's say it's 80 hours, I don't know what it is.
Now, it's almost half of what it would take to go EMT.
You go to the EMT, you start over.
Sure.
So you're doubling your time to get your EMT.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. So,
Motion to approve?
So moved.
Jackson, Billy, any discussion? Thank you, Alan, for your graphs and that, they're very helpful.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
I'm hoping it shows what we're doing, so.
It does,
Thanks,
thanks.
Alan.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries 5-0. Old business, Parks and Rec, policies and procedures.
Thank you, Mayor. This is revisiting an issue from last meeting. We presented parks and recreation policies and procedures for approval. At urging of council, we came back, or went back and did some more looking for adding to the policy with at least preliminary procedures and policies for the pool, swimming pool. So it was harder to get than I would think it would be, but we did get some documents from surrounding cities. Part of the challenge here is that in most states, the state regulates municipal pools and tells them what they have to have. That's no longer the case in South Dakota. So I did go to some surrounding states and pulled some language from their regulations as well, which helped out quite a bit. So the new policies have those, have a new chapter added for the pool. I believe it's chapter 11 if I remember right. Yeah, chapter 11 swimming pool. I would fully expect those to be adjusted as we get into operating the new swimming pool, but it does start us off with having something. So I'll recommend a motion to approve the parks and recreation policies and procedures.
Motion to approve,
So moved.
Brock,
Second.
Chad Riley, discussion.
I mean, do you feel this is off to, in the past, they've had things in a policy and procedure manual, this is obviously a step forward. Do you agree with that or disagree with that,
I
or?
would agree with
Yeah, I agree.
If there is such a manual, I have it.
that. Well,
It was a verbal manual, it changed pretty weekly.
this is a good start. Things will have to probably be tweaked along the way.
Yeah, we find things every month in policies that we've already approved that we know we need to adjust next year. It's, you never start perfect, but one of my favorite sayings is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the bad, or the good, I should say. And go with what you have, build on it from there.
Right. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, presentation infrastructure design group.
Council, PowerPoint will be on the TV screen, in front or behind you.
That way you don't have to stare at me. Thanks for the opportunity for us to present on who Infrastructure Design Group is, a little bit about our company and our services. Try to keep it brief. You guys got a big agenda, and I'm sure you don't want to hear us talk about engineering all night long, I'm assuming. Next slide there. Like I said, we're trying to keep it brief. Talk about who we are, what we do, and what that exactly means to you guys, for you. The top point there is really the main point. At any time, you guys have questions of us, we can stand up here and talk all night long, but really I want to make it interactive so we get to learn more about you guys and what's important to you, and you can find out more about us. So really it's about you. We'll talk about a little bit about who we are, what we do, and what that means again, just so that you get a better feel from us.
To start, I'm Phil Gunvalson with Infrastructure Design Group, Chad Hanish, Infrastructure Design Group. We're both out of Sioux Falls office.
Thanks, that's a good start. So next slide. So a little bit more about who we are. We were founded in 2012. Phil and I started the company in 2012. So the company itself is 7 years old. That doesn't mean that that's all the experience we have. We have a lot more experience than that. We worked for previous companies, but this was something that we were both passionate about. We started the company, just the two of us in Phil's basement, and we've grown it since then. Now we're focused on civil engineering. Phil and I brought the engineering aspect to it. A year later, we added 2 more owners who brought the surveying side of things. So our main focus is civil engineering and surveying. What we'll highlight throughout is we all pretend to be able to do everything. A lot of engineering's a broad subject, obviously. We basically focus on municipalities or states or counties, that type of work. We can take care of, I'll say 95% of the work that you guys do day in and day out, but we don't pretend to be everything. We team well with other engineering firms, and we'll highlight that as we go through. When it comes to water, wastewater, technical type services, we've been able to team with other engineering companies to bring in that service. So that way we can focus on what we do well. And like I said, that's probably 95, 98% of the stuff that you guys do day in and day out. We have offices, so the main office started in Sioux Falls. We now have offices in Sioux Falls, Mitchell, Watertown. Started with 2, we've grown to 20 total, with 14 of those in Sioux Falls, 5 in Watertown, and 1 in Mitchell. And so that's pretty substantial growth in 7 years, and I really think that's is a result of our clients and providing good client service, meeting their expectations. You don't grow unless you're doing that. Out of those staff, and we'll talk a little bit more about staff, but we added the 2 surveyors as owners. So this highlights some of our staff. You have the 4 owners there on the left with myself and Phil on the engineering side, and then Bob and Bo who came on the survey side. We have additional key staff identified. Vanessa Victor's in our Watertown office. She's a structural engineer, a little bit of a jack of all trades, but focuses on bridge design. Krista May is a project engineer. She is a jack of all trades. She does anything and everything: transportation, municipal, traffic, water, wastewater. Again, more on the general side. We highlight a lot of our other staff here. This isn't all of them, but it gives you a feel for the staff that we have. Like I said, there's 6 surveyors. 2 of those are registered land surveyors, 4 technicians on the survey side. We have 2 support staff with admin, 12 engineering, 12 on the engineering side. 6 of those have PEs, 5 EITs, and 1 civil tech. Also highlighted hometowns. I always think that's, some people find interest in that. I'm originally from Hartford, so the West Centrals, you can't hold that against me.
We hold it against Riley all the time.
Yeah. If you let him in here, I'm free. That's been a long time. Right now I live outside of Garrettson, but most of our staff, all except for 2, are grew up, born, raised in South Dakota, mostly around the Sioux Falls area. It gives years of experience. I have 23 years of experience. Phil has 17. So, like I said, the company might be 7 years old, but we have a lot more experience than that. I did provide some handouts, 2 different handouts. One's a sample CIP that we'll talk about a little bit later. The other one is a company overview that goes into a little bit more detail of all of our different services. So the services that we do provide are the municipal engineering, structural, transportation and planning, water resources, site development, land surveying, construction observation, and parks and rec. We'll mostly focus on municipal engineering. Obviously, that's what relates to you guys. those company overviews that I handed out, they go into a little bit more detail on each one of them. And a lot of them cross lines, obviously. You guys run into a lot when it comes to municipal engineering that touches each one of those. So to go into a little bit more detail, I'm gonna hand it over to Phil, and he's gonna talk about some of our project experience, give you guys a better feel for what we've done to date, and,
Sure. Thanks, Chad. So as you can see up there, in municipal engineering, we have several bullet points of what we do. Chad mentioned the capital improvement plan handout we handed out. If you were to flip to the third page on that, basically it gives an example of what a CIP is. Chad has actually presented this very pamphlet to several groups within South Dakota, including like the finance officers groups, street maintenance superintendents group, because many communities have had no involvement with the CIP. And this handout here is basically an example CIP, and it shows how simple it can be. And again, a CIP is a tool which helps you both identify and prioritize purchases and projects, identify funding to go with those projects or purchases, and then establish a schedule for those. So, I mean, it's all laid out here step by step, starting with identifying a committee, usually city staff, often council members, often your engineer. Sometimes cities complete these all on their own. Other times they have an engineer, for example, complete the entire thing. We've been involved in an advisory role with these for communities. So just helping out when questions arise. It all starts with kind of identifying those projects that you want to see happen, come up with costs with those, what funding's available, what capital funding does the city of Lennox have. Once these projects are identified and we've made cost estimates for them, then let's start looking outward. What funding is out there that we can get to try to see these projects to fruition? Then once we know all that data, the committee needs to all sit down collectively and identify what areas they want the city to move forward. Are we gonna spend the next 5 years working on our streets? Are we gonna spend the next 5 years working on parks, water, sewer, or what? And then a critical point of this is once that decision is made, and even throughout the whole process, engage the public, whether that's through council meetings or special meetings. Get the public's buy-in, get everybody on board, everybody on the same path. That way, if this is a 4-year, 5-year CIP, 7-year, what have you, council members change, mayors change. This way, this plan is in place to provide a clear vision for the community as it moves forward.
the example is the one that we did for City of Garrettson recently, and they never had a 5-year CIP. I don't know how your guys' capital planning process goes, but theirs was, and a lot of communities are this way. They basically, it was that time of year and they go around the table and say, this is what we think we should be spending our money on. And this was something that was really needed so that they really planned and were spending their money as efficiently as possible. And it was scary for them, really. I mean, it's a gut check. You start listing all the projects so that they're all spelled out and the costs associated to those, and you guys would be the same. There's a whole list of projects, and then it's how the heck are we gonna pay for it? And there's no silver bullet there, but we did a prioritization matrix that helped prioritize those projects. And the public was involved, they identified the projects, and like Phil said, I think that's important, so those priorities can't necessarily change. If a new staff comes on board or a new council member comes on board, you can't really change the direction of something that's been through that process. So that's why it's valuable.
Next slide. Also completed various studies, whether they be drainage studies, what we've assisted on some planning studies, transportation studies, Up there is an example of a citywide drainage planning study Chad is completing with the city of Brandon. You'll notice there on the bottom, we teamed with a couple of our teaming partners, AE2S Engineering and Confluence, which is a landscape design firm. I'll let Chad talk a little bit about that study.
Yeah, that was a pretty large study, we're still working on it. And it touched a lot of different categories. We're reviewing their ordinances, we're reviewing their design standards, make sure that they jive. We're doing some specific drainage basin studies. We went through a public involvement process, identified where some of the major issues were, and then focused on those, studying them. Brandon, they're gonna be in the classification of a MS4, which triggers some stormwater quality requirements. So that's an aspect of it, is to prepare them for those requirements. And ultimately, for Brandon, we actually developed a mini CIP, or in the process of developing a mini CIP focused on drainage, which will get folded into their overall CIP. But that drainage one highlights, just like a normal CIP, highlights all those different projects that we identified through the public involvement process and interviewing different city staff and departments, and then prioritize them. So, and that's gonna tally up to a certain number, obviously, for a 5-year stormwater plan. And part of that is to look at the funding, because that's what it all comes down to, right, is how we're gonna pay for these things. And Brandon's a community a lot, and there's other communities that are going through the same thing. They're recognizing that their drainage system is no different than their water, or their sanitary sewer, or their streets. It's part of their overall infrastructure, and it's a utility. And most likely what will happen is there's probably gonna be a stormwater utility fee, just like a water fee, a sanitary sewer fee, because drainage is one of those things that haven't been looked at like that in the past. It's a system you have to maintain, construct, but it's always probably come out of your street or your general budget. But it's really a utility, and so you need to plan for it, maintain it, just like your water and your sewer system. And so that's how some communities are looking at accomplishing that with their drainage system.
When you look at your drainage study
Yeah.
and tie that into the storm sewer, can you kind of lay out for me how you tie those two together with your drainage study, with your storm sewers and that?
Sure. So we are completing several of these studies in addition to Brandon, several in Sioux Falls, and also one in Mitchell, South Dakota right now. And we're really creating, whether it's basin-wide, usually you look basin-wide, city-wide gets a little large, but you look basin-wide, you have your entire storm sewer network in your drainage model. And so you're creating an existing model there, and from that analysis, we can get what we call 100-year inundation levels, or 25-year, whatever storm we're analyzing. So that model creates like a 5-foot by 5-foot grid system. So you can literally tell if the water is getting to the front door of this business during that 100-year rain event based on that model. So then we start looking, okay, this area is experiencing massive amounts of flooding. So what can we do with the storm sewer system, or add detention, or what do we need to do to alleviate that flooding? So then we make some of those changes within the model, and we run a proposed model. And that's really how we identify those storm sewer projects that are necessary to fix the flooding.
One of the things we have in Lennox is a serious problem. It's called ponding. I just discovered. And there are a lot of different ponding areas throughout the city. We've been having 100-year events every year now. What I'm looking at is getting a grid, a factor into looking at our different areas of the city, how the overall drainage runs through the city, acknowledging that, because you can't fight Mother Nature.
Right.
But looking at how to improve that, is that something that you guys look at?
Sure, the models we run today do incorporate that ponding. Like I said, it's all on a, whether it's a field topoed surface, or if the area was flown with LiDAR or some sort of topographic model, we input that into the drainage analysis, and like I said, break it up into 5-foot grid sections basically. So those ponding areas are taken into account in the model, which is really tough to do when you do it by hand calc methods or previous modeling software.
They're all interconnected, whether it's that storm sewer or the main drainage way or some ponding areas, all that's interconnected within that analysis.
Yep. The tough part is estimating what type of event it was.
And like you said, it seems like it happens more often than not anymore, and everybody is struggling with that.
So what, here, I'm sorry to interrupt, Ron, board too. Like Harrisburg, for example, when they get a huge rain event, what used to be their old high school would flood, and flood, and flood, and they put in this huge multi-acre detention pond. Can you explain kind of how that works a little bit on what a detention pond would do, or isn't there something called the Sutton Point? God, I just lost my. Anyway, yeah, like some type of, because we do, I mean, you come down Highway 17 and we are in a bowl.
Yeah.
Which is a problem when you start thinking about getting water out of town. And just talk a little bit about what that was supposed to do and how that works.
Sure. I actually worked on that project early on, so it's part of the Columbia Basin sewer outfall. So it all starts down south of town by the middle school. It all outflows into there, and they installed new 60-inch pipe all the way up to what used to be Lake Ole, which is the detention pond area right now. So really the whole show place, cabinets, basin there, it all came in and filled what was just a pothole, Lake Ole, and then that would eventually go over the road and go south. Well, now we're putting a brand new 60-inch pipe into Lake Ole, right? So we can't just open up a 60-inch diameter pipe to downstream 9 Mile Creek, because the owners down there, we're not allowed to put more water on them. So by constructing the very large detention pond and constructing an outlet structure on that 60-inch diameter outfall pipe, we're able to basically throttle the amount of water that goes into that pipe. So, and it's all based on how the rain event happens as well. So we're allowing small amounts of water to enter this pipe throughout the whole storm, and then as the detention pond fills up, that pond's going to continue to empty over 48 hours. So that's really what they're designed for.
And that's part of that analysis, is you calculate, okay, there's this much runoff going to the existing system, and the existing system was nothing at that point. It basically went down the streets. Okay, and then you go back and do a bunch of alternatives. Okay, we did a 60-inch pipe, how big is that pond? If we did a 30-inch pipe, how big is that pond? And so every situation is going to be different based on what you have available.
How do you do your runoff analysis?
Do the runoff analysis?
Yeah.
Well, there's lots of different methods. If you're familiar with the different actual calculation methods, like rational or SCS or
No,
swim method.
I just heard you say that.
Okay. They're all formulas at that point. That's where the engineering comes in. It's all formulas calculating the runoff.
Okay. I just wondered if you tested the runoff area to see how much water was flowing through that, like a before and after.
So with the model, we don't just plug numbers in and the model spits something out, like you're saying it shows an inundation area. We don't just say that's what it is. We rely on what you guys have experienced out there, and we calibrate the model based on the rain events that have happened in the past to make sure that they jive. What we're seeing with the model jives with what you guys have seen.
There's no, there's heavy rain on Boynton that comes up over it and causes lots of problems. So, that, go ahead, I have more questions.
Drainage is major issue in about every community these days,
Yeah.
I mean, more and more, especially if they're growing.
So this next project is a great example of, we stick with what we are good at, and we know when to bring in the experts. This is a Mitchell Future Source Water Evaluation. Now, you with Lewis and Clark, you don't have to worry about this one, but Mitchell's looking to determine out where's their water gonna come from for the next 40 years. They currently purchase from BY Rural Water, so we teamed with A2S. Specifically, they have Dr. Delvin Bohr on staff. I don't know if any of you are aware of him. He is an instructor up at SDSU who taught water treatment to about every engineer in the state.
Still gives me shivers.
Yeah. So he was the perfect partner on this project. Again, they currently get it from BY Rural Water. Should we recontract with them? We're looking at building a new intake on the Missouri River over by Chamberlain, where they have water rights, constructing over 70 miles of pipe all the way to Mitchell. Should they rehab their existing plant, which has not been in use for over 10 years, and draw water out of Lake Mitchell, which is very polluted. So we looked at all those treatment trains that would be required for that, all the pumping costs, and things of that nature. We were really brought on board to do a lot of the coordination, the public outreach, help the city with the public campaign, and then also some of the pipeline engineering and cost estimates, whereas A2S was kind of the big picture and the treatment options. Next slide.
What did they actually decide to do? I'm kinda curious. Please
It's
tell
in
me not Lake
progress.
Mitchell.
It's in progress. They have not made a decision yet. We also looked at storage, available storage. I mean, that's gonna play into it. Looking at redundancy, they want a redundant system as well. Lastly, this Lake Campesca master plan. This is another one where we had several teaming partners. Basically, Lake Campesca has some algae issues and some cleanup issues that the city is looking to tackle. Chad's working on this one. I'll let him talk about it a little more.
Yeah, that one was focused on water quality was one aspect, and then planning and zoning around the lake. And they wanted a bigger picture view of, and it had a lot of public involvement as part of it. But what do they want that lake to look like as development occurs around it? Do they want it to be an Okoboji? Do they want it to be something less? And so that's what that public involvement was. And then we actually laid out the planning and zoning ordinances for around the lake. And then water quality was the other thing. They have some water quality issues there, and so it was recommendations of how to improve that, which is no silver bullet there. Dredging is really expensive. The unique thing about Lake Campesca is it's the inlet. It's the inlet to the Big Sioux River, but the outlet is the same. So it's basically a big detention pond. So everything goes in there and filters out. So that's the challenge with Lake Campesca.
Next slide. So Chad mentioned we can basically handle about 95% of what communities do with their city engineer. So just some examples here. Out there is just a little case study of a neighborhood water main installation project. We both do the design and the construction administration on those types of projects. Also the survey. Next slide. We have a couple of these here. Here's basically the same thing in Garrettson, I believe it is. Currently have some water and sanitary sewer projects there. We also have some, we're assisting the city with some development projects and some stuff that the Garrettson Economic Development's looking at. Next slide. Just some more pictures of some water and sewer installation. Again, our staff that we pointed out earlier, our staff is made up of both designers, but they also are very experienced in construction and construction administration. We think it's a great benefit to have that person who completed the design to also have a role in the construction, because really to have that project be successful, it's gotta be constructed to the design's intent. Oftentimes you get people out in the field who weren't involved with the design at all, so if changes were made, there may have been a reason why it was designed the way it is. So having them both involved in the design CA helps alleviate some of those issues. Next slide.
A lot of these slides are just to give you a better feel.
Can I ask you one more
Yeah.
question? Sorry to interrupt. What's your opinion or expertise on lining?
Sewer lines.
Yes,
CIPP line.
yes.
It's a valuable tool in the toolbox. I mean, it has its uses. We've done several of them, both sanitary sewer and storm sewer pipes. If the hose pipe is in decent enough shape and can accept a liner, and digging up the line is gonna prove to be costly, it's definitely something to look at. But there is a prime example of having your designers also in the field or experienced field technicians, because CIPP lining is, the plans are basically a specification. Here you go, contractor, line this line, here's the specs, you have to do it. But there are a million things you need to watch for in the field as it's done. A million things that the construction inspector needs to be keeping track of as they're doing it. And unfortunately, it's one of those processes that once they start, you just kind of gotta hope everything goes right, because it's a pretty fast process. So all you can do is watch the process, document all the test results as they go through it, do your post-inspection video, and your post quality control tests. We usually send some envelopes of the finished liner to an independent lab and test for thicknesses and things like that. And hopefully the culmination of all those results shows that they met the spec. We've done some where we have seen issues, and then it's working with the owner and the contractor to figure out the best fix. I don't have to tell you, you usually only line stuff that you have the capacity to line it. If your line's full right now, sometimes you can't line it and reduce that capacity. Well, what happens if that first liner didn't work quite right? Now we gotta put a secondary liner in there. Do we have the capacity to do that? So then you get into, maybe you gotta remodel the flows in that pipe.
Thanks.
So here's a picture of a construction on a drainage project we did. This is a drainage channel within the city of Sioux Falls in the backyards of some residential homes. This one also had a drainage model with it, and it was basically to protect the sanitary sewer. There's a sanitary sewer right next to the channel. So we work a lot with municipalities on these types of projects, but also landowners. Every project, it's critical to engage the landowners early. Situations like this, we needed easements from all the landowners in here. The last thing the landowner wants to hear is you're gonna come in and remove all their trees. And this certain project is a very wooded area, but that's what we had to do. It was nearly a 2-year planning process with those landowners, but if you engage them early and often, usually you can get everybody on the same page. That's one thing that our firm prides itself on and we're kind of known for, our public outreach and our public involvement. We've actually, we've been picked for several projects, large projects, including like this, the Sioux Falls LRTP, the Long Range Transportation Plan. That's for the whole MPO area. We've been selected for that project with our teaming partner for the last 2, and our public outreach experience is one of the reasons why.
What's an NPO?
Metropolitan
Planning Organization. So, once you get to a certain population as a MPO, so Sioux Falls, Hartford, T, Harrisburg, Brandon, I believe that's all of them. Within that area, they're all part of the Sioux Falls MPO.
It's
So
actually part of CEQA too.
Yes. and CCOG administers that.
So really, it's a large transportation plan focusing on vehicles, pedestrians, buses, transit, bicycles. One major plan where everybody, the whole NPO, all these communities work together to come up with one plan benefiting the whole area. And it's a requirement by the federal highway as well. Next slide. And then some of the larger projects, if you've been over by Target on East 10th Street, Arrowhead Parkway, we are the prime engineer consultant for the city of Sioux Falls for Arrowhead Parkway, basically from Sycamore east to past 6 Mile Road, almost to Highway 11. Highway 11 basically. They've built now to Veterans Parkway for phase 1. They'll be continuing to build different phases on that, but if you've driven out that way, that's a large 6-lane roadway. Again, that's one where our public outreach experience really helped us win that project. There's a lot of landowner involvement, commercial landowner involvement on that one. There's water, there's sewer, there's drainage, heavy drainage. There's traffic signals. We also do traffic signal design and traffic planning. Next slide. This is just another picture of Arrowhead Parkway. Next slide. And another one, just some pictures our inspector took out there.
That's just an asphalt overlay, just to give you a feel for large projects, small projects. We've been experienced with all of them.
Yep. Next slide. You know, I highlighted a little bit, construction observation, administration. Thing to point out here is our staff, again, not only designers, but we also make sure we send our staff to the DOT construction training classes and they get certified, whether it's in earthwork, structures, asphalt paving, concrete paving. Those certification classes are required by the DOT and some municipalities to allow an inspector to be out there doing construction administration on those projects, basically certifying that they've been trained to do so. So again, we make sure we have our staff for those. And that also includes erosion control. Erosion control is a big one right now. They actually require that the inspector and the project manager all have their erosion control certification on every project. Next slide.
So, it's probably already taken a little bit longer than what I was anticipating. Again, back to this slide that goes over all of our different services. We've given you an overview of a little bit of everything, mostly focused on municipal engineering. Next slide. So, again, what's that all mean to you guys? Our services are focused on municipalities, county, state work. That's our passion. We like doing that type of work. We've experienced success, and it's based on meeting client expectations or exceeding client expectations. Again, we've grown over 7 years, and it's really our clients that have allowed us to grow. We have a history of building relationships. That's what we find really important. So if we're doing work for the city of Lennox, we feel like that communication goes both ways. We're an extension of you guys and city staff, so that you guys might not always agree with our recommendations and opinions, and that's totally fine. You guys should be able to tell us that. We should be able to say this exact same thing. I think that's how relationships work. You guys are running a business just like we are. We don't always agree on things, so we don't expect you guys are gonna agree on everything. But I think if we have those open lines of communication, we still succeed. If you talk to a lot of our clients, I think they'll say we're just easy to work with. We're just not difficult. I mean, we're pretty down to earth. We're good at listening and responding. And again, that emphasis on the client communication, that's always key.
And again, we don't offer every service, mainly the wastewater and water treatment. But we gained our experience in large companies where we manage teams across multiple offices, across multiple states, offices in different states. Really managing a sub-consultant to us for those specific projects where that technical expertise is needed. Our previous experience managing across offices proved well in that situation. And then also we find it good then that we have our technical expert and us working together on it. So right there is another set of eyes on the project. It's not just one firm working with the client. It's a basically like a third opinion in there.
Your technical experts that you deal with, let's say in wastewater, for example, do you have relationships with them now, or do you look at what a community such as ours has and then try and identify the best fit for them?
Or we'll let you guys identify the best fit. If
Okay.
you already have somebody that you really like working with on the water or wastewater side, we have pretty good working relationships with about every engineering
Okay.
firm, and we really have no issues working with firms. And especially if that's what you guys really want, we're more than willing to do that. We don't wanna come in and force something on you, that's the
No,
whole
right.
point.
No.
We want you guys to be comfortable with the services being provided.
So you have a good working relationship with like Banner?
Yeah, we have a team with them, but we don't have a bad working relationship with them. I mean, I know the guys there, and I have no issues.
Cause I think isn't that who Jeremy likes to use for the wastewater treatment facility?
Tell me about how you assess streets and how you go about looking at a long-term plan for streets.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different systems out there. The phase one program is one of them, which, I mean, it's a visual analysis and a rating system, so it's just how you would envision it. You have to go and inspect that street yearly or every other year and keep track of, is it getting worse, better? But it has some defined criteria on how you rate that street system, so that it's a defined system, so that if someone else comes in, there's still a little bit of interpretation that's there, but you're not gonna come up with drastically different scoring criteria on a street if you use that defined system, and there's different ones out there.
And there are some communities who've piggybacked on City of Sioux Falls or Minnehaha or Lincoln County. They brought in pavement management companies that actually drive their streets with specialized equipment and monitor or assess the condition of all the streets they drive, every street in the community. And that's probably the most economical way to at least have a company like that come and do it.
Get you the most data too. Infrastructure management system, not affiliated to us, because I've gotten that question before. Hey, I see your van driving up and down the streets, what are you guys doing? That's not us. What other questions you guys have for us?
How's your bidding process, like when you're putting together a big project? When do you like to get your bids out to the contractors to have a bid on?
Usually as early as possible, like December, January, February timeframe. This year and last year, I don't know when the best time is, because contractors started the year behind schedule, they're ending the year even more behind schedule, and so the bidding climate's just a little bit different. And on some of the projects, the smaller ones, and I've even said maybe you wanna wait until March so that they actually have a better feel for where they can fit that in. And then maybe you get better bids that way. I think a lot of them are looking at some of the smaller projects right now. So it is difficult right now, typically as early as you can.
Good?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
2019 housing study.
Good evening. I'm Steve Research with Community Partners Research. We have before you, I think you all have before you the study. It's an update of the 2015 study that I did several years ago. I'm just going to quickly walk through a few of the highlights of the study, so I'll kind of reference the page as I go. First, I'd like to thank everyone that assisted me with the study, Nate and his staff, and I interviewed some people, surveyed some people over the phone, people sent me information. That made my job a lot easier. Page 1, there's 7 sections to the study. I won't go over all those, but there's 7 sections. Page 2, I'm not going to go over every page, but methodology, we look at the U.S. Census in our research. That's quite old. So we also look at the American Community Survey, which is an annual survey that's done in each community. Some of you might have been surveyed through that. We get information from a data reporting service called Applied Geographical Solutions, AGS we call it. That's what the governor, state of South Dakota's governor's office uses. We buy information from ESRI. It's another reporting service that the governor's office used to use and switched over to AGS. We use both of those. Data from the city and the county. We interviewed several people. We called, I think, 17 rental property owners in town, got information from them. Turning to page 6, we get into the demographic data. And Lennox has been growing as Lincoln County has. AGS from 2010 to 2019 estimates that you gained 327 people. ESRI is estimating you gained 417 people, and the U.S. Census is estimating you gained 325 people. So that's a 36 to 46 person gain per year over that 9-year period. So that's good growth. Turning to page 9, population projections. ESRI is projecting that from 2019 to 2024, the 5-year period we're in now, there's going to be an increase of 301 people in the community. AGS is projecting 473 people, so a lot more optimistic. That's a growth of 60 to 95 people per year. On page 10, household data. We looked at population, now we look at actual households. From 2010 to 2019, ESRI's estimating that you gained 88 people, or 88 households. ESRI is estimating you gained 182, so that's a gain of 10 to 20 households a year. So again, good growth. Page 11, the third column there under Lennox. You can see from 2010 to 2019, every age range had household growth. Most of that growth was in the 55 to 74 age range. That's the baby boomers. We see that everywhere. There was a 133 household growth. Turning to page 13, just real briefly, in 2019, your average household size was 2.39 people per household. That's pretty high, actually. We see it under 2 in a lot of communities. Harrisburg is probably in the, or a T is probably in the high 2s. 2.39 is for a city your size. Page 14, ESRI's estimating that you're going to add 129 households over the next 5 years, AGS 112, so that's a growth of 22 to 27 households per year. I always say that, smaller communities such as your own, your destiny is in your own hands, really. I mean, if you don't add lots, if you don't add rental units and so forth, you're not going to get a lot of growth. If you add the housing, the jobs are here, you're going to have that growth.
Could I interrupt you for just a second? You just said if we don't provide the housing, the growth won't happen. Is that correct?
Yeah, and by we, I mean, the community, the private sector, and assistance from the city and so forth. It's a it's a three-way stool. It's housing, it's people, and it's jobs. they all go together.
How does the job look for when you did the study on our job basis?
How was the job?
Yeah, we have 700 and some people coming in, correct?
Yeah, I've got that in here. Yeah, I mean, for a community your size, you've got some nice industry. Most of the communities I get in, I've been in 70 South Dakota cities now, so I'm getting to know the state pretty well.
Is not having the housing provided adequate, does that impact negatively on the industry moving in or attracting industry?
Well, I mean, they look at that. You do have, you're right adjacent or close to Sioux Falls, it has various housing options. So, yeah, industries look at housing availability, that's one of the factors they look at. There's no doubt about that.
Okay.
Turn to page 18, just on the upper right-hand corner, about almost 28% of your housing in the city is rental housing. The rest-
How is that compared to other communities our size?
That's about right.
Okay.
I say 25 to 30% for a city your size. You get into a Fargo or something that's a college town, or you're almost up to 50%. But a city your size, 27, 28% is right on. So, then I think we've got some income data here on page 20. There's a little bit of data lag here. This is 2017 data, that's the latest we have. But your median household income, that's every household in the community. That's one-person households in senior housing, that's everyone. Your median household income is about $49,000. That's the exact middle. Half or less, half or more. Your median family income, and the family is 2 or more people related that are living in the same household. That's almost always higher because quite often you have more than one income. That's $61,000. Those are good incomes. I get into a lot of smaller communities out in the middle of South Dakota where the average family income is $35,000, $40,000. I was just in Brandon, and Brandon's family median income is $90,000. So you're on the high side for a community your size. Brandon is the highest I've seen as far as that goes. Then let's get through some of this too. Existing home sales on page 26. We went to the county and we looked at good sales over the last several years. These are existing homes in the community. And by good sales, we eliminate bank sales, foreclosures, father to son sales, family sales, and all of that. So in 2018, there were 51 good sales. The median sales price was $126,700. Again, that's the exact middle. Half are for more, half are for less. You can see that's down a little bit from the previous few years, but a couple of sales can change this. So you consistently have pretty good median sales price. The higher the sales price, median sales price of existing homes, the more new construction you're going to get. Again, as long as I brought up Brandon, I'll bring up Brandon. The median sales price in Brandon is $245,000. That's a house right in the middle that might even need some updating, need some work. So you say, gee, maybe I look at, if I can afford it, look at building new. I get into some communities where the median sales price is literally $30,000. And you say, I can't build a house. I just buy the nicest house in the community. And you really can't even build a house because the bank won't give you the loan. The house is worth less when it's completed than you have into it, that sort of thing. 126 is right in that range where people say, hey, I'll look at building new, but you'll also look at the existing housing stuff. Building permits on page 31. Over the last 20 years, you've had 146 units constructed, 104 of those were single-family homes. Page 32, from 2000 to 2008.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
On the building permits, do you think the reason why our building permit number's down on single-family homes is because there's a lack of available building sites?
I think that's, yeah, probably one of the main reasons. The more available lots you have, the more options there are. The more developers and more builders you have in the community, they all are their little marketing groups, you know, and have their own following and so forth. So, yeah, right now you just have a few miscellaneous lots around town.
Because we don't really have anywhere for someone to put up their.
Right, yeah. I hate to keep picking on other towns, but Worthing, for example, had all of that growth go on when they had the subdivisions available. Once those were no longer available, things kind of dried up. You know, so we really, especially in a community their size, momentum is a lot. Once you get the whole thing going, you get the developers, you get the land, you get the builders, and you guys are all, you know, got the guidelines and the zoning and all that down. To keep that momentum going is real important. User friendly, we keep saying. So from 2000 to 2008, it was 11 units per year. 2009 to 2014 went down to 2, and in the last 4 years, it's up to 6 units. Page 33, this is our rental inventory. We've got about 268 rental units in town. We surveyed 180 of those. You can see we looked at market rate, subsidized, and so forth. Page 34, we looked at 71 market rate units that have no age restrictions, income restrictions. 71 units and 10 projects. We found only 2 vacancies for a 2.9% vacancy rate. Next, page 35, you have no tax credit units in town. That's more workforce, moderate income housing. You've got 3 subsidized projects with 58 units. I've got them listed there. On page 36, there were 8 vacancies in those units for a 13.8% vacancy rate. Senior services, got 2 projects. You got Lennox Assisted Living, that was Hilda's previously, 42 assisted living, which is a full array of you know, meals and bathing and so forth. And then they also have 9 independent living units, and then you've got the nursing home, it's got 59 beds. Lennox Assisted Living did have some empty beds when we did the analysis, and the Good Samaritan Center operates at about 90% vacancy rate. Turning to the employment section on page 44, this is for the whole MSA, the whole metro, the whole Sioux Falls metropolitan statistical area. You've added over 20,000 employees over the last 8 years, and the unemployment rate is 2.5%, which is 3 is considered full employment, so you're under that. Turning to page 47, this is the commuting patterns that you were talking about. Approximately 746 people are coming into town every day for work. There's 142, which might be a bit low, but there's 142 people that live and work in Lennox, and there's 1,053 people that leave every day, primarily Sioux Falls, I imagine. We always say the 746 people that are coming in, try to get as many of them as you can to live here. It's going to be a small percentage, but some would live here if the right type of housing was available. And then the 1,000 people that are leaving every day, keep them living here. 54, we talk about strengths for housing development. Your community has a lot of those. I won't go over those. Page 57, we look at some strategies. The only one I'll mention here is protecting your existing housing stock that already exists. I did a quick analysis, and you have about $126 million of real estate already on the ground. It would be tough to duplicate that $126 million, so to protect that with housing rehab and renovations and so forth is real important. We've got 21 recommendations. If we turn to page 62, we're recommending 60 to 71 rental units over the next 5 years from 2020 to 2025 in various categories, 32 to 38 market rate units. As I indicated, you have basically no vacancies out there currently. Townhome style units on page 63 are our preferred. Apartment building would also work. Page 64, we look at workforce housing, moderate income housing. Really, the only way to get those built these days is through tax credits, tax credit projects. There is a developer that I talked through this process that would like to build some tax credit units in the community. You're small to get a tax credit project. Usually they go to Sioux Falls and Rapid City and so forth. But they're looking at possibly doing the Beersford, Canton, Lennox type project where we work together, so that's something to consider. Look at 12 to 14 senior independent units, empty nesters, young seniors, and we talk on page 67 about some of the amenities that should have. Talk about 4 to 6 existing conversions, existing buildings, maybe upper floors of downtown buildings, that sort of thing. We talk on page 69 of a downtown mixed-use commercial project. Be a shot in the arm of the downtown. There's quite a few cities that are looking at these types of projects. First floor have commercial, second, even third floors having rental units. People are more willing to live downtown these days. We talk on page 73 of home ownership programs such as first-time home buyer assistance, low-interest loans, credit counseling, those sorts of programs to get people into ownership. And we talk about new housing construction of owner-occupied homes on page 77. Page 78. Really a goal as much as anything. We're recommending 10 to 12 new homes, new housing units, owner-occupied units annually. You're doing like 5 or 6 currently. You did, I think in 2016 you did 11, so that was 1 year you came close. From 2000, on the top of page 78, from 2014 to 2018, compared to the Sioux Falls MSA new single-family home owner-occupied construction versus what you built was 0.3% to 0.77%. So you're not at 1% of what's being built in the MSA. So you've really got an opportunity, even if you got to 1%, I get into communities your size out in the middle of South Dakota that are self-contained. They can only do new construction of what they can create from within. You've got this monster basically next door where there's, or you're part of it. You're part of it where 1,400 are being built a year. So that's an opportunity to just get a fraction of that. So the 10 to 12 units is 0.8 to 1% is what we're throwing out there as a goal. Lot availability that we talked about on page 79 is very important. We think a 2.5-year supply is a good rule of thumb. At 10 to 12 units a year, that would be 25 lots that should be available, and 50 to 60 lots over the 5-year period. Now you just have a few miscellaneous lots, but you do have a developer that's looking at a large development of about 120 lot, 150 lots actually. So that would take care of the immediate need anyway. When we talk about some of the things that subdivision should have. Page 81, we talk about some of the strategies for new construction. Be as user-friendly as possible is one that I always bring up. Page 82, we talk about some other types of homes, the higher priced homes, the medium-priced homes, but then the need for some more affordable homes like governor's homes, manufactured modular homes, that there's areas and lots available for that type of housing also. Page 83, we talk about twin home, townhome development. typically in the town your size, about 20 to 25% of the new construction is twin homes, townhomes. You've got 354 households currently in the 55 to 74 age range that are prime twin home, townhome owners, and that's going to grow by 56 households over the next 5 years. I talked about housing rehab that I won't get into. I already talked about the need to, and there are programs out there and agencies out there to assist with rental rehab and owner-occupied rehab. Other initiatives, we talk about acquiring and demolishing dilapidated structures. You really don't have too many in the community. And since the last study, you've had 5 homes that have been demolished that were beyond repair. And there's the private sector's coming in and moving houses on those, building houses on those lots, so that's great. We talk about the need to take this study and maybe take the 4 or 5 things that really make sense. You know, a lot of these you might say, gee, you know, it's not a real high priority, but get together with the various agencies in the area, the private sector, the developers, the builders. You know, how can we accomplish the 4 or 5 biggest goals that we have? I guess, and just touch on page 92 for a minute. We talk about downtown redevelopment, you know, which you're already doing a lot of that. When a family is looking at where to live, they look at first a job, and if they're willing to commute, you've got jobs here. If they have some specialty type of jobs they can find in Sioux Falls, pretty much guarantee it. So the jobs are in the area. Then they look at the school. That's number 2. And the school, from everything that I've been hearing in my interviews, the school's excellent. And then they'll look at just drive around the town, drive up and down the streets, drive down Main Street. How do they feel? They're not even sure what they're looking for, just what kind of feeling do they get. If those 3 pass, then we'll start looking for a place to live. And then finally, number 21, we talk about marketing and you know, it's kind of a catch-all of what I've already discussed. But one thing that I typically say is, you know, marketing, you've got a lot of great things going for you, and if you can market your community to, if you don't want to live in Sioux Falls, it's too big, where should I live? And if the first word out of their mouth is Lennox, you've done some good marketing. You know, that, and I always bring up Barnesville up by Fargo. They just started telling everybody they were the best city to live in outside of Moorhead and Fargo. And, you know, it caught on. You know, they marketed their community. So, with that, I'll open up for any questions you might have.
Tell me about mobile home parks in Lennox. What did your study determine about the mobile?
I didn't get into mobile homes too much in this one, but I did last time. And in the last study, I brought up a few things. First of all, 2 of the 3 mobile homes needed quite a bit of work. One was in better shape. But I brought up a few suggestions, and I don't know if you've, you know, but one is time of sale inspection, where before a mobile home can be sold or rented, that it's inspected. Secondly, it brought up age of that a mobile home has to be a certain age before it's you know, has to be young enough or new enough. You know, that older homes can't be moved into the community. I think I brought up a possibility of a co-op, that some of the mobile home parks in the city, that the people who live in the mobile home park have actually purchased it and turned it into a co-op. So I didn't go over all that again in the study, but it was in the last one. So
My thing was when you looked through last time, I believe you found that several of the homes weren't up to date and weren't that good.
yeah,
I was curious as to what your view was when you went through this time.
yeah. And I went through them, and you know, they're, you know, mobile homes in general. I mean, there's mobile homes and there's manufactured homes, you know, that are on the foundation, and you know, like double wides and that sort of thing. You know, there's still work that needs to be done with the mobile homes, and the age, they're like, you know, they're as time goes on, they deteriorate, and
What is the role when you do these studies of mobile home parks in the city's growth? What role do they play in you?
It's funny, where I live in Fairville, Minnesota is going through this right now, but it's definitely an affordable option for some people. And what I typically find in the cities that I get in is management. If there's good management, typically the mobile homes are in pretty darn good shape, and if they invest money back into the mobile home park infrastructure and so forth, so it usually comes down to management, but definitely is, especially, and the gap keeps getting wider, that the cost of new construction for a stick-built home versus what people's wages are, it's going the wrong way. Again, what town was I in that they said their construction costs for a stick-built home are $250 a foot. That means 1,000 square foot building is house is $250,000. So there definitely is a role, but again, mobile homes, you know, tend to go down in value and age and so forth. So that's where, you know, management and that sort of thing comes in. But
What is our availability for lots in the mobile home park? Is that adequate, do you think?
I don't know how many lots are in the mobile home
Okay.
park.
I don't have any more questions.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Billy,
Second.
second Brock, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you for your time. All right. We're skipping that. Now we move on to 2020 Motorola contract.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to have Chief Erickson come up to the podium and answer any questions you may have on this. As we get closer to 2020, as you know, we budgeted for the purchase of new radios in the 2020 budget for the police department. Over the past several months, I would say probably up to 6 months, I would say. The police department has been receiving demonstrations, quotes, and proposals from a variety of radio vendors. Some of our traditional ones, but also reaching out a little to folks that we haven't been in touch with in the past to replace the outdated radios currently in use. And just to give a little bit of a picture of the outdated radios, I think the first day I was here, we had a staff meeting, and there was an ambulance call, and both Alan and Will are in this office, are in this room, and they have to be told by the front office that the ambulance is coming to get Alan and that Will has to leave. They couldn't receive a radio signal in here, simply because of how outdated those radios are. The most recent proposal from Motorola presents an opportunity to proceed in 2020, yet push most of the payment for those radios back to future years. So Chief Erickson will speak to the capabilities and features of the new radio. The proposal also allows us to purchase a radio and body camera combination within the next several weeks, and allows payments over the course of 5 years after an initial payment of $20,000 in FY20. We have budgeted exactly that amount in FY 2020. My motion is going to be to approve the agreement with Motorola, but Will can speak to a little bit of the technical capabilities. These body cameras that come on these radios have been useful in more than a handful of situations in the time we've been demonstrating them on the team. So,
Absolutely. So we'll first touch on the radios. The radios that we currently have are an analog signal. The radios that we're looking at purchasing, they're going to be a dual banded signal. Earlier this year, I sat down, as with the other chiefs of the county, with the sheriff in a meeting, and he announced that his vision was to take Lincoln County to a digital signal by September of 2020. Recently, I received an email, and I know Jack's probably speak more to this than I can. They've been pushing farther and faster with moving that signal to a digital signal with the county guys. I received an email on Friday stating that as of that day, they had 3 deputies that were going to be running off from just the digital signal. It's been working very well for them. They've seen positive results over the analog signal that we typically will run.
Not today,
Not
no
today.
problems.
A lot of problems today. As with everything, there's probably gonna be some hiccups, and I'm not gonna pretend like I know how those hiccups are fixed. It's way above my pay grade. As I was saying, is these radios are dual banded, so in the event that we are having problems with the digital, we can switch back over to an analog signal with just a flip of a switch.
The thing about with the digital is you cannot page off a digital channel.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds like that could be a very big problem. And I'm not sure how they're gonna overcome that aspect of it, if they're gonna try to put something else in place that's gonna allow them to be able to do that in the
You have to
future.
talk to Todd, call Todd. And talk to him.
Right. As of right now, the radios that we have been demoing, they are the dual banded radios. We are only running off an analog signal right now. And so far, the signal has been greatly increased. I've been able to sit in here and have dispatch get a hold of me, and I've been able to talk to them instead of having to run for that door or try to get out that door in time. So those radios have a huge capacity for being able to store these different frequencies. And the ability to just not only store the digital signals, but the analog signals, it helps us out quite a bit. Because there's several times when we get into pursuits where not everybody's on the same channels. We have Turner County, we have Minnehaha County, we have Union County. If we end up having to run into a pursuit, everybody switches to INT. With our portable analog radios, we cannot switch to INT. We have to actually the only radio that we have is our in-car radio that can switch to the INT to get that signal. With these new portables, we will not need to worry about that. We can switch that by turning a turn dial on the actual radio itself or pressing a button. There's a couple different ways that you can switch it. So that's kind of without getting into the technical specs, which I'm very unqualified to talk about. The radios have worked phenomenally. We've seen great things from them. Onto the body cameras. The body cameras, those are an invaluable tool, as not only as a management side, but as a police officer. That camera tells the story regardless to what other opinions might come in to try to influence that story. That camera is always going to give us the accurate story of what happened at that time. The wonderful thing about that camera is it's not only a single functional camera, it takes pictures. If we're on scene and we need, instead of having to go all the way back to our squad cars to get our cameras when we're on a crime scene, we stay right there. There's a separate button that will take still photos while we're recording. If we are interviewing somebody, typically in the past, we've had to bring them into our interview room, flip on a recorder, flip on the camera for the interview room, grab a digital recorder just in case that one malfunctions, and then keep taking notes on top of it just to make sure that you're accurate with everything that you do. This not only takes the video for us, but it also has a recorder built into it. So while we're recording, we can also get an audio recording that we can later send off to have it typed out for us that we have to submit. It has a couple features on it that are unique. It has an emergency officer down, and it's GPS locatable. On the system that Motorola provides for it, when we actually view the video, there's a little GPS screen right next to it that tells exactly where that officer is, where he was 2 minutes prior to where he ended up at. So even if it wasn't turned on and it wasn't recording, it's always capturing that data and it's pulling it into its memory. The minute he flips it on, it has a 30-second pre-invent record, which will have no sound to it, but that mapping will go up to 2 minutes prior. So I can see if he was 3 miles outside of town, had to run all the way into town, or I can see if he was 5 blocks away and was just happened to be there. It's tremendous. In the event that an officer does go down and dispatch is not able to reach them, I can access that remotely and find out where that location is of that officer on that GPS. The new system that they have, the monitoring system, I can actually access that from home on my laptop. I will have administrator access, so I can watch their videos. I can also access their GPS location if I need to. So it's a tremendous, there's a tremendous amount of information that we can gain from these particular body cameras. Outside of that, as Nate mentioned, we've already had situations that have come up where they have helped us so many different ways. So we've tested them. They are meeting the military requirements as far as the durability, and so are the radios. That's about
Other
it.
communities using them now?
As of right now, there's only, I think T has some body cameras that their officers use. They're not the same type as what we use. We tested their system that they have. We did not like it. There's more features involved in that actually causes the officer to have more amounts of work at the back end of it. So we're not happy with it. And the transfer that this system will allow us to do versus where we burn it to a disk and get it to the state's attorney, we open up a portal, drop it in there, they open it up, they pull it out. You know, it's a disk, but saves us a lot of time and effort.
Self-security. I think, Will can correct me if I'm wrong, but probably the most widely used body camera system is the Axon 2. I mean, just universally, it's probably the most widely used. What is unique about this is that it's a camera. It's a body cam and a radio in one. It kills two birds with one stone. Will and I have talked, well, I started almost 12 months ago, 11 months now that we've talked about body cameras. And that being beyond necessary for officer safety, for officer training, for peer learning, frankly for insurance purposes, just incredibly important for us to have those. You think about must have one case a week that comes across a person's desk where it says, this was the alleged misconduct, here's what actually happened. Right. You know, or God forbid we get into an officer-involved shooting someday where we have to defend our actions in court. Those body cameras are invaluable in those instances.
Jackson, you've been on here longer than everybody else. I know this has been talked about in the past, getting this technology, right?
Yep.
We've got this budgeted now. I think it's an important tool. I make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Motion by Chad, seconded by Jackson. Discussion. I'll just add that the Sioux Falls, the SROs all have to have body cams and they're mandatory to be turned on with any interaction with staff or with students. So, go, since it's money, Chad, Wolf. Oh,
Can I ask a question first?
Yes.
Is there a prepayment penalty if we pay off the loan, the finance agreement early?
No, we could pay the whole balance off next year if we wanted to. I think the budget, the total amount,
$66,613.51.
Yeah.
Right.
So we could pay that next year.
I just mean,
The interest cost is
it's
around $6,000.
$5,600, $56.65.94 of interest.
Yeah.
I mean, that just, if we're able to, I mean.
We are, I mean, we'll essentially be starting the year behind the eight ball financially though. We budgeted $20,000 for radios next year. That's what's attractive about the payment option.
And I'm just
We're not gonna go broke by spending another $40,000, I'll say that. But coming up on the end of this budget year and being frustrated with it the entire year, I know we would like to start off next year, a little ahead of the game.
Well, I'm just wondering if we could pay the 20,000 next year that we budgeted, and then the following year budgeted pay it in full.
Oh, so pay the balance in 2020.
2020.
I
Budget
think
for it.
if that's something that the council is interested in, I think we can go back and I don't think they would have an issue with that. We rewrite the contract.
Yeah,
How much of the same as what you're getting at?
I just hate interest.
So do I.
It's dead. All right, any further discussion? Chad Wolf.
Aye.
Brock.
Aye.
Chad Riley. Aye. Jackson.
All right,
Billy.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
Thanks, Will.
Close pool checking account and authorized transfer of funds. Yeah, we should probably see, everybody's okay with that, what we're doing?
With what?
Closing the, pool checking account and authorizing transfer of funds.
So, yeah, so we're winding down to the end of our project. And with, the payment coming out for the pool, it's gonna be based on taxes coming in. And so if we go ahead and just close this account, this checking account, and move it to our regular general checking account, then, we just have that little bit of security that if we go over, the money's gonna come back into it because of the taxes available. But, I'm just worried about having that one checking account out there and then having overdrafts or anything that could happen with it. So, yeah, hindsight is better than foresight, and looking back, I wish we would have just left it in our general, yeah.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Chad Riley, Brock. Discussion?
The reason why that was moved into a separate account is because there are some monies being run all over the place to fix
Yeah.
some poor decisions. And that's
And-
why the people wanted to see that.
Yes, and I do have like our project, so we keep all of, any money that comes in for
Sure.
donations for the
Yeah.
pool.
You've got a reconciliation.
I've got it right here, and they can, they'll know exactly how much it is.
You're still
I
accepting
brought it, it
donations,
would've been-
correct? You're still accepting donations?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Always accepted.
And
Yes.
are the pool and park and rec board okay with the account being closed? They're comfortable with how things are being run now?
I don't think we haven't run it by them, but I would be a little surprised if they weren't okay with that. We've been,
Right.
in touch with
Brittany?
with Brittany on a regular basis on what's coming in, what's available.
Communication with that much is much improved, so. We'll start with a roll call. Chad Wolf.
Aye.
Brock.
Aye.
Chad Riley.
Aye.
Jackson.
aye,
Billy.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. All right, resolution 2019-11-25-01.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, I'm gonna have the same memo for all four resolutions here. I think what we'll do is just go through all four, one after another if we get through this. The city has been approved for additional funding to complete Central Basin 3. We must secure that the revenue against that debt that we have with past projects. If you'll recall that back in early 2019, the bid for Central Basin 2 came back significantly higher than original estimates, which offset the total cost or the total amount of funding available for phase 3. So we went back to the state, to the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, requested additional funding. That was approved earlier this fall at $1.375 million and allows us to complete the Central Basin project on phase 3 as planned. So the surcharges being proposed tonight are an expense being passed on to the residents as the past ones have been, and businesses of Lennox. Not a preferred step in terms of staying ahead competitively with surrounding communities. I'm confident we will still be there, but it does increase our costs. Without the completion of the project, however, we will risk continued I&I complications impacting sanitary sewer and eventual fines for non-compliance with our discharge permit. I think completing this project is the most responsible choice facing the community. I think it's important to note here that the surcharges go into effect on January 1, 2021 are not an increase to the base or usage rate. There was a little bit of similar discussion around that on social media about a month, I think it was a month or two ago, after the posting of the official public notice on the surcharges. So this does not change the base or the usage rate. It's simply a new surcharge that goes into effect in 2021. All that being said, Denise and I actually feel that our current surcharges on past that combined with base rates and usage rates may actually be bringing in additional revenue above what's necessary. So over the next several months, we're going to be performing more in-depth analysis to look at what that current utility rate schedule is and determine whether the current charges are sufficient to meet the needs of the system, and if so, what adjustments need to be made. Since a lot of these surcharges were put in place, the community has grown, we've added properties, we've added, services in terms of number of customers, but those amounts haven't really adjusted, those surcharge amounts haven't adjusted. Now, we always have to maintain that 110% surcharge, we have to, maintain, that much in surcharge, or in security, I should say. We can still adjust that though, and quite frankly, it's something we should look at least every year, if not adjust every few years. So we believe that we're actually bringing in sufficient funds as is, and over the next few months, we'll probably take more in-depth look at where that actually sits and what adjustments we can make.
Yeah, and I think people need to understand the difference between what a usage rate is versus a surcharge and get educated.
Yep.
Certainly if we're going to do new projects, this is expected. To some degree, I don't think it should cover all of it. And I think everybody on the council, or the ones that I've talked to, in regard to large projects, that when we're replacing sewer and water, that there's some type of a formula involved in that. So, and there hasn't been much rhyme or reason to the way these three major projects have been done, which is frustrating to me as a taxpayer. It's even more frustrating to me as a council member having to make these decisions based on the hand we're dealt. But there needs to be kind of a default setting on how we're going to do big projects and how we're going to fund them.
And one of the challenges that you're always going to come up against is a lot of these large projects are dictated by what amount of state and federal funding you can get. And if you can get a great amount of it, that's fantastic, and you use it. The downside of that is if you have been one of the lucky few to have a special assessment on your property because of one of these projects, simply because of where you fall in line in terms of what funding is available, there's not a lot of equity in that. And we can't always expect to do things equally, but we can expect to do them in a way that's equitable. And I think that's something we need to carry forward into future projects. And again, when we look at the Lennox 2035 plan, what is our approach to that funding? And that's a discussion we have to have with the community over several months to gauge sort of a sense of comfort in terms of where are you okay here? What funding mix feels right to you as a taxpayer? One of the other things that we'll be looking at is, if you pay attention to our fund balances, the water fund in particular is fairly healthy. And if we can use some of that healthy fund to pay off some debt, we think we actually can. We've got at least one, maybe even two loans where the principal amount is low enough that we can probably use the water fund to start to pay some of that off early.
I think as you're moving forward into this, you're taking the right approach to take an analysis of where the funding's coming from, what we can pay off, looking at the savings that we can pass on to our constituents and taxpayers. And I agree with you that it's high time that we go back and reevaluate that and see exactly, and give our council and our constituents a clear picture of where we're going with it from now on. So.
Do you have an example of what some of those things you want to use the water fund to pay off are?
I think the first one was Lewis and Clark.
Are they all water and sewer related?
It would be water. If we're gonna pay it out of the water fund, it should be. Yeah.
I was just curious.
No.
Yeah.
Good question.
So I wanna say Lewis and Clark was at $375,000. We could probably pay it off pretty
Do we
easily.
owe them for?
For the install of the infrastructure to get that, into that system. Gotcha. And, paying that off early would be advantageous as Lewis and Clark looks into that next stretch, after they've got all their customers connected, what is that next phase of Lewis and Clark? Do they expand capacity? And when they do we increase what we want from that system? Lennox is at 440,000 a day. That's our guaranteed allotment of the Lewis and Clark system. Harrisburg purchased the same amount of allotment. I think, hindsight's always 20/20. And I think if I don't wanna be in the position 20 years from now where we say, dang it, we should have ordered 200,000 more gallons of water a day and have to pay extra for
How
it.
much do we use now?
About 140 to 150.
So we've got some, a bunch.
We've got room available.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I think the idea behind the amount we had was not just residential growth, but also attracting, having plenty to attract any industry that may come.
Yeah, what,
Yeah.
We started,
Outside of land availability, that's the biggest thing we see when we get site selector profiles or projects from the governor's office on economic development. You know, the two biggest things that they're often looking for outside of land availability is water available and sewer capacity available.
sewer capacity? Yeah,
Our sewer capacity is okay.
once we
It's
take
getting
it,
better.
yeah, that's what.
We have had to look at some and say, we can't do this, because until our I&I is at an acceptable level, we simply can't accept some of these that come to our desk. Jackson, you had a question?
we had started lower, I think we were at 300,000. And then they upped the capacity
Yes.
there, and
Yep.
Yeah.
they asked us if we wanted more.
Yep.
And we agreed to go more.
Yeah.
That was probably 8-10 years ago, I think.
Would've- The second round would have been about 8 years ago, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's,
And that's what we have the
That's looking
infrastructure for, is the 440,000 gallons.
yeah, I'd have to, I mean, I could talk with Jeremy, and we'd certainly have to do
Or is
a
this,
water
or is this
study.
thing we're paying off like a seat license, I mean, like a license to get that much water, or?
No, it's the cost of getting the water to us, basically.
Yeah.
There's a formula with it, and if you
A
use.
very complicated formula.
Very complicated formula.
So are you looking made for a motion for all 4 of these
We
resolutions?
should do a motion on each one individually.
On each one,
Yeah.
okay.
I agree.
And what this will authorize, those bond surcharges, or those bond resolutions in particular, authorize the mayor to execute the agreements and apps with the state.
I'll make a motion then for resolution 2019-11-25-01.
Second.
So, in 2021, we're gonna raise the rates $6, is that correct?
If we feel that that's what this would do, yes, that's what these surcharges would do. It would be $4.35 and $1.65.
But it's not raising the rates, it's adding a
It's
surcharge.
right, it's a surcharge.
But as you guys.
We're not
review
gonna
these-
promise where we think we're gonna end up. But I doubt that it's going to be,
It's up to $4.35.
yes. Yes,
So-
and again, we have to secure the debt.
So if things,
But we can always adjust the usage rate based on what we think we need to bring in.
but the surcharge will stay at 435, but the amount, the
For the
cost
time
of the
being, yes.
usage you could bring down potentially.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
We have more control over the usage rate than we do over the surcharge. Or base rate, as I mean.
Okay, roll call vote. Billy?
Aye.
Jackson?
All right.
Chad Riley? Aye. Brock?
Aye.
Chad Wolf?
Aye.
Next one.
Motion to approve, 2019-11-25-02.
Second.
I'll give it to Brock.
Okay.
Any more discussion on this one? Okay. Jackson?
All right.
Billy?
Aye.
Chad Riley?
Aye.
Brock?
Aye.
Chad Wolf?
Aye.
All right, that one's approved, carried 5-0. Next one, resolution 2019-11-25-03, surcharge.
Move to approve.
Second.
Chad Wolf, Chad Riley. Discussion, we'll go with Brock.
Aye.
Chad Wolf.
Aye.
Billy.
Aye.
Jackson.
All right.
Chad Riley. Aye. Motion carried 5-0. Now we go to resolution 2019-11-25-04.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Riley, and we'll give it to Wolf. All right. We'll start out with Chad Wolf.
Aye.
Billy.
Aye.
Brock.
Aye.
Jackson.
All right.
Chad Riley. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we got through those. Now we are at accept police department resignation.
Yes, thank you,
Motion to
ma'am.
approve?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Resignation accepted 5-0. Open police department position for applications.
Motion to approve.
Chad Riley,
Second.
Chad Wolf. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we need a motion for executive session.
So moved.
Chad Wolf,
Second.
Billy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 5-minute recess for people to take care of their meeting.
Are we doing it in here?
I would like to, but we can't. He's got.
Let me guess, Eagle
Yeah, no,
Ridge.
that's fine. I was just curious.
This is already lined to the bathroom, I should ask the question. Chad was missing, so I went and reprinted it, I'm like, well, where could it have gone?
So,
Now we know. Okay.
are these
Right.
correct?
Thanks.
No, there's not.
The only concern I have is if they're gonna go on digital, the state digital system is down for about 6 hours a day.
Still can do it with the switch.
Yeah.
Could you guys have that?
Oh, really?
Oh, we're always
So,
on those.
So they can.
Right.
Let them know how that works out.
Right.
That's the
If you wanna
problem.
go.
Yeah, well, when they key up the mic, it'll beep, and it'll just continue to beep because.
Yeah, thank you.
But they'll know they're not here.
Right, they should,
Okay.
It's like a busy signal.
yes.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
Here, do you want me to wait till my-
on that, you do know on the digital system that it was down for 6 hours all day.
See, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, not this Saturday, but last Saturday it was down. So,
Oh, yeah.
6 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
And you know it's down,
Right.
because it just beeps, it gives you the business.
Well, see, I was worried about this when he set this timeline. Because originally when we sat down and talked about it, we said, okay, so this September I'm gonna outfit half of the squad. And then by next September, I'm gonna outfit the rest of it, and then we're gonna help you guys get in-car radios with this grant. And then I get the email, we will be all up and running by the end of November. I'm going, what? So I guess the option of getting car radios underneath that grant is up?
Yeah,
So,
but yeah, it was down for about 6 hours. So, just so you know.
I'm not gonna get my hopes all up and get shit. I know how this, when it comes to technology and
Unless you're
changing,
from-
everything is a great thing on paper.
Yeah.
Implementing it is a whole nother ballgame, so.
For one day, you know?
Yeah.
But it's still a dual band, so we can run into those issues at this
Right.
line.
And like I said, we monitor both frequencies all the time, so.
Right.
But yeah, today EJ couldn't hear anything on digital.
And there was some time this weekend where they were trying to get a hold of one of the deputies and they were having problems, maybe that was equal too.
No, that was Ashley and,
All right, you guys have a good night.
Hey, watch out.
county commission, when they go into executive session, they go into the auditor's office too.
Oh, they do?
They leave the commission chambers.
No, I don't think you have to. You can. You're not taking action or anything.
No.
Technically, you're still in.
Now, do we have to make a motion to go back in?
Just declare back then.
Okay, we're back in session. Executive session is over. Contract will be presented to Nathan for his review. We'll discuss that after he gets a chance to review it. The other thing to discuss is, I was asked, there's an allegation made that a council member spoke about matters in the executive session. I conducted an investigation. I've shared that with the council members. There's no foundation that any council member has spoke of anything that's in executive session, and I wanted to make that clear. So, those are the two things I had. Does anybody else have anything to discuss?
Motion to adjourn?
Second? Oh, I removed my second. I think he has something.
Just something real quick. I spoke with Denise, is that last week?
Yes.
And I was gonna bring it up tonight, I should have just put it. We're gonna try and have a finance committee meeting before one of our next meetings. Is that what we talked about? Be real short. She's got an idea just to clean some things up before the end of the year and going forward on a quarterly basis. So just keep that on the horizon. We'll find a date.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Richard's not. All this we talked
Yeah.
So,
lakes.
I get this text from my nephew. Today.
Wow.
He said, I was trying my darndest to get him to shoot something smaller all weekend, and of course, he waits to the last thing and shoots this.
I don't know if you worked for Stack.
I was looking on there and I didn't
I couldn't see it in the
previous experience.
It's been a bit of a drought out there for a decent year, last several years.
It just looks big because it's not
Yeah,
he sees that on camera. It looks big.
I'll tell him that. The buck looks a lot bigger because it's on an iPad.